Climate Channel, Climate Conversation, Climate Actions Pathways, episode 17. Today we have a very distinguished panel with us, including Substar Chair Toshimo Kanu and our former ADP co-chair Ishan Kumar Singh, and also former SB Chair Thomas Kurlev, and a long-time climate negotiator Matty Namelin, and Jamie Oiby and Turner Walker. So with this panel, we would like to discuss the upcoming G7 meeting, virtually of course, then virtual prolonged SB session for almost 3 weeks from May 31st to June 17th. So this is the longest SB session ever we have. So what is the challenges we are approaching before this virtual SB session, and also what is the expectation from G7, especially holding just before the Biodiversity Day on May 22nd. May 20 and 21st, we are going to have G7 meeting of the most richest countries of the world. Are they going to raise their ambition sufficient enough to keep alive the 1.5 degree temperature rise? So, to keep Paris Agreement alive. It is a huge challenge whether they are going to raise their ambition in terms of mitigation, in terms of adaptation, in terms of climate finance, technology transfer, capacity building, and also what about the loss and damage. We are also having right now the Caribbean Climate Week before the SB sessions. So all these, how those will be fair in our negotiation. Will there be any snowball effect, positive impact, salutary impacts? Because we need to raise to zero fast. We need to cut back our emissions steeply. But there are still a lot of things, lot of unresolved issues in terms of Paris rule book, in terms of Article 6, market mechanism, non-market mechanism, and also here and there, especially finance, climate finance, adaptation finance, mitigation finance, Green Climate Fund, Adaptation Fund, Least Developed Country Fund, and other keys under the convention and beyond. So with this, without much ado, I would like to ask Toshimo Kanu, you are going to face these challenges, how you will approach this session of Substar, because you have a lot of agenda items and you need to crack a lot of things in this prolonged session virtually. You will not see us physically, but you will have us virtually. So in different time zones, how you are going to meet those challenges, those tricky issues, how best you can say marshal all your effort to crack the hard nerves. Toshi,
Thank
to
you
initiate
very much.
that conversation.
Yes, thank you very much, Kamrul, and it's a pleasure to be here among friends and to be connecting to so many colleagues and stakeholders throughout the planet. Yes, I think that we are going through extraordinary circumstances, and we just have to adapt a little bit and try to live with what we are facing and try as much as possible to make something work. Since late 2019 in Madrid, we have not convened in SB sessions. And while we've been unfortunately delaying opportunities to engage because of all those constraints, climate change has not been waiting. Like my good friend Kishan like to say, you can quarantine from COVID, but you cannot quarantine from climate change. So we received guidance from the Bureau earlier this year that we should try as much as possible to hold an SB session. So the subsidiary body session, which will take place, like you said, from 31st of May to 17th of June, will be as much as possible as a normal session. Of course, we will not be meeting in person, but that session is an SB session. So we'll have an opportunity to have an opening plenary, we'll have an opportunity to engage on substantive issues, and as much as possible to minimize delays and maximize progress as regards the agenda that we have on the way to Glasgow. That said, the session, we have to face it, it's not a normal session because we will not be face-to-face. But the session will not be a session, for example, that takes decisions. For that, we will have to meet up in person in order to be able to resume taking decisions. And one of the first decisions, of course, is the adoption of the agenda. So we will be presenting an integrated agenda, trying to catch up the work that was not undertaken last year, which is SB 52, SB 53, but also the mandates for this year, SB 54, SB 55. So we'll be providing an integrated agenda to send the message that no issue is being left behind, no issue is being taken off the table, that parties get reassurance that engaging in the process leading up to Glasgow, all the issues will be discussed. But of course, the session which will take place in June will not allow us to cover all those agenda items. And I guess we will have to come up with a way where we need to not prioritize, not cherry pick, but just be pragmatic about those issues. And for example, Marianne and I, and we've been working really hand in hand since we assumed our chairmanships last year, have said that for all the reports from constituted bodies, those will not be considered in the June session. This is something that we've decided. And other agenda items, for example, when it comes to the SUBSTA work, methodological matters related to the convention or to the Kyoto Protocol, those are issues where usually we end sessions without really making too much progress. Those issues are being sent to later on during this year, so that in the June session, we can concentrate on where we can really make some progress. The session, like you said, Kamrul, will be 3 weeks, but let us not be tricked. It doesn't mean that we'll be working all day long for 3 weeks. The modalities call for 3 hours of sessions per day. This is why we could not, in 2 weeks, be able to cover all the work that we have at hand, and we decided to extend the session by 3 weeks. We did not decide, the Bureau decided. So the session will be 3 weeks, but the 3 weeks will consist of daily meetings of 3 hours with up to four meetings taking place in parallel. But like I said, the meeting in June will be subsidiary bodies. So it's not going to be a talk shop. It's going to be a meeting where we engage, where we progress on the unresolved issues that we need to finalize in order to complete the Paris rulebook and other issues on the agenda. So the chairs will have to capture that progress. The progress may not have a formal status, but at least it will be important for us to be able to capture the progress that we will be able to achieve, so that it's not lost, it's not thrown out of the window, but we can make use of it when we resume in person. And that capturing can be done through non-papers, informal notes, elements of draft decisions that will be presented in the closing plenary. There will be a stocktake plenary after the first week, so that we ensure that we are all in marching orders and that we are really making strides towards the task that we have. Also, the issue of the time zones. We have, in a way, I would say, divided the world in so to speak, 3 parts. And we felt like we should then organize things based on 3 different time zones, where each of the time zones will have to suffer for 1 week, at least, out of the 3 weeks. So if maybe I can refer, Kamrul, do you want me to refer to Mexico, Morocco, or India? Which country you want me to refer to? Okay, let's go for India. For example, the first week, India will have to meet at 6:30 p.m. every day for the first week.
Okay.
And we'll have to then engage and remain connected for 3 hours. Okay. And then the week after, India will have to meet at 2:30 a.m., which is the day where India, unfortunately, will have to have a difficult week. And then the last week, India will connect at 8:30. And those hours, for example, for Germany will be connecting at 4 p.m. the first week, 11 p.m. the second week, and 6 a.m. the last week. And in the US, on the East Coast, the first week they will be connecting at 9 a.m., 5 p.m. the second week, and 11 p.m. the third week. So it's really not ideal for anyone. And we arrive at this scheduling by trial and error, because the provisional one that we sent first created problems for some constituencies, and then we tried something else, it created problems for another constituency, and then we said, you know what, we'll propose this and we'll stick to this. It's not perfect for anyone, but all of us will have 1 week where we'll have a little bit of a hard time. But the other 2 weeks will be, I would say, in a position to kind of exactly. So what else can I say? Yes. So the session, like we said, will be 3 weeks. We as regards, for example, observers. So because the session will not be making decisions, will not be adopting an agenda. After the plenary, we'll not go into breakout groups. We'll go into informal consultations. And for us, that setting usually should be open to observers. So for us, we will be calling for parties, for the sake of transparency and inclusivity, to allow for observers to attend those meetings. If a party decides that this is an intergovernmental process, we don't want observers to be part of the discussions. Unfortunately, we as SB chairs will have to oblige. But we believe that given the circumstances we are going through, we need to convey as much as possible the confidence to all stakeholders that we are working steadfastly in order to resolve this climate conundrum. And we should be transparent about it so that people are aware that we are all collectively trying to make as much progress as possible. So that said, the modalities, like we said, will be as much as possible to the modalities and rules and practices of in-person sessions, including for observers. Because of the limited time that we will have, there will be no side events organized during the period. If some stakeholders want to organize something, they can do so. And if some parties believe that they have time to go and attend those events, we'll be very happy. But there will be no side events connected to the session. There will be some mandated events related to the SBs that can take place. For example, there will be the presentation of a web portal produced through the work of the facilitative working group on the local communities and indigenous people platform. So such an event will take place as part of DSB. But as far as side events organized by think tanks, NGOs, those unfortunately will not be able to accommodate.
But what about Toshi? But what about the constituent bodies if they want to have their side event?
So
say
the
Green Climate Fund or Adaptation Fund or Adaptation Committee or say Long-Term Finance Committee, if they would like to have a side event.
Excellent question, Kamrul, because Marianne and I sometimes are being blamed because people tell us, well, your approach is not balanced. You want to concentrate on transparency or Article 6. Come on, timeframes. What about support? And Marianne and I, we said, come on, guys. We inherited from an agenda that you gave us. So it's not an agenda that Marianne and I have made up. It's an agenda we received from parties. And if parties feel like that agenda is not balanced enough, doesn't provide enough clarity on what type of means of implementation or adaptation and loss and damage should be addressed more, it's not because of Marianne and I, it's because what party gave us. So this is why we often work very closely with the two presidencies, Chile and the UK, so that they can undertake under the helm, under their purview, events pertaining to long-term finance, pertaining to adaptation, so that those issues remain on the table. But unfortunately, those issues are not managed by the SB chair, at least not directly. Because of course, under Article 6, if you talk about share of proceeds that can fund adaptation, yes, there is adaptation. But when you look at the global goal of adaptation or the modalities pertaining to adaptation, it is not under the purview of the SBSTA chair. So what we are planning, and we are yet to finalize that, is that because those constituted bodies will not be able to report during the June session, they will have to report at the end of the year in Glasgow. We want to organize a session co-facilitated by the presidencies where constituted bodies have an opportunity to update parties and stakeholders on what they've done. So it will not be a report that will be adopted or conclusions will be transferred to the COP for adoption.
But the information session.
Exactly. But so that those issues are addressed as much as possible and that people have the general sense that there is some overall balance in the work that we are doing, that we are not concentrating into finding rules that will benefit private sector when it comes to markets, that we are not looking at how to establish constraining timeframes that would make it difficult for parties to be able to show more ambition. No, that we are looking at those issues, but the other issues dear to many stakeholders and parties are also looked at.
So Toshi, I'll come back to you.
Yes.
I'll come back to you
again.
You
want me to pause? You want me to pause now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll pause.
No for the time being. Because I would like to also ask Kishan and Thomas, because they are also our experienced hand in the process. Kishan, you have heard Toshi, and what is your reflection? What is your take? And what are your questions regarding his approach and how you, if you are the chair, how you would have handled this time? Isha.
Thank you, Kumrul, and good morning, good afternoon again, colleagues, and thank you for the opportunity for sharing thoughts on this important issue. As Toshi said, and he reflected my views on not being able to quarantine the climate emergency. 2021 would have marked the end of 2 years in the decade of implementation of the Paris Agreement. And therefore, extenuating circumstances call for innovative approaches. So I think this is a new realm of negotiations that we are entering. It is not totally without experience, I would say, because for the past year at least, many, if not all of us, have been involved in virtual meetings. I do it on a daily basis, so you're almost tired of it. So we are almost, experts at this thing. The recent Biden summit out of the US was entirely virtual. Successful. So we have the experience, we have the learning curve. It has been sharp, but we've learned from our own experiences. And I must commend Toshi and Marianne and the COP Bureau for taking a bold step. I think it's what is needed in order to advance the conversation going forward, because there's no indication of when this crisis will come to an end, and therefore we cannot place ourselves in a wait and see position. We all know too well what is happening around the world with the second, third, and fourth waves of the pandemic, and therefore let me again congratulate approach being taken by Tosi and Marianne. I think I probably would have done it exactly the same way, or if not emulated what Tosi and Marianne are doing. This approach, in my view, assumes and is contingent on negotiating good faith of all parties, as has been the case in the UNFCCC process for as long as I can remember. And therefore, if we all as parties premise good faith negotiations going into these virtual talks, I think the outcome could only be constructive, with the recognition that we need to move forward. So I look forward to partaking in it. I note Tosi's reference to the side events not being possible, but again, this is the value of the climate weeks, and I just came out of the Latin American Caribbean Climate Week, which I participated in. And this is the value to me of the climate weeks, that allows the space and the time and the platforms for international organization, think tanks to actually come to the fore and demonstrate and relate what they're doing in a very interactive way. And the week was quite successful in my view, and so therefore I don't think that the SBs, virtual SBs coming up, would necessarily suffer as a result of not having this, because these think tanks and NGOs always engage in any event. But again, that is the value of the climate week activities that have been going on. I think also that we are in a good place in terms of political momentum that has been injected into the process in the past few months. I expect more coming out of the G7 meeting coming up, and of course indications from the Petersburg dialogue, for example, have also been very, very encouraging. So I think going into SBs with these conferences and summits at the back end and leveraging the momentum, I think we are very well placed for a very constructive and progressive SB session. And I think it's critical that capturing the conversation would be essential. What we will require of parties is to have faith in our own interventions and our own positions going forward beyond SBs, and to give the chairs the authority and have faith in the chairs that they will capture the conversations in an accurate and faithful way. I think without this, we will not necessarily progress in the way that we want to, because COP26 would be critically important for totally operationalizing the Paris Agreement by adopting all of the outstanding issues related to the rules, Article 6, transparency and common timeframes, because that really is the engine room of the Paris Agreement. And in order to achieve the objectives of the Paris Agreement, to flatten the curve of the climate emergency, as we have been doing with the COVID pandemic, we need good faith negotiations. We need a constructive approach to this. It's new territory. We need to find solutions and not find problems with the process. The process will invariably throw up challenges, but we need to quickly find ways of addressing those challenges, finding solutions rather than finding problems with it, and moving forward. So let me congratulate Tosi and Marianne in her absence for excellent leadership in a very, very challenging situation, not being able to interact face-to-face with parties, to have that kind of bilateral interaction, and to actually steer the process, in a face-to-face way, and in which that modality would have benefited that leadership. So I really say heartiest congratulations and praise to the two chairs, the SB chairs, for actually managing this process, virtually basically, but at least incrementally taking us progressively, step by step, inch by inch, towards the place we need to get to in Glasgow. And I think this virtual 3-week, albeit with challenges, but challenges are not new to parties. We've been around in different time zones many times and falling asleep at the negotiating table with cups of coffee. We've been there, Thomas, Tosi, myself, chairing. We've been there without sleep for beyond 24 hours. So these are the things. These are the negotiating backpacks that we have with us in terms of experience and expectations. So it's not a critical challenge in my view, and we have the added comfort of being at home and the ability to go to the kitchen and open the refrigerator, get a snack, get a drink, come back while being in the negotiating room at the same time. So I think we need to recognize the challenges, be optimistic, be constructive, be progressive to find solutions for what is before us. And I am sure with that good faith, we can move forward towards COP26. So those are my initial thoughts. Thank you very much, Kumo.
Okay. Thank you, Kishan. I also echo 100% with you that in the hands of Toshi and Marian, we are quite assured that they will take us to Glasgow on a silky road, though there are kinky pathways ahead, but they will navigate all of us in a safe landing zone in Glasgow. Because we had also a lot of experienced negotiators within different parties across the globe. So they will also support, because some of these people have been in this process since INC days, since Rio. So they have also a fashion, and this fashion would also help them take out to Glasgow in a smooth fashion. Thomas, you are also SV and Substanciers, and also host of Conference of the Parties couple of times. So what is your take? We have also heard last week Marian and this week Toshi. Are you assured?
Well, I think I should start from saying what I have said to Marian, that don't ask what your chair will give you, ask yourself what you, the party, can offer to your chair to make the process smooth and as productive as possible. So that would be my first sentence. Well, I have few points. Well, I have mixed feelings when I think of this incoming SB session and an entire process leading to Glasgow. Firstly, of course, we are kind of trying to find the ways on a completely new territory of having virtual conversations instead of one-to-one or meetings of bigger groups in the same room. That is the new situation, the situation that is well, very difficult, and well, the decision-making process has to be, at least now, postponed until we meet physically. So it's really very good that we can hear that we will not allow any issue to fall out of the table, that we are leaving no one behind, etc., etc., which may sound like the well-known word package of UNFCCC, but it's a very meaningful package. This is what parties expect to hear from the chairs. This is kind of a reassurance that is offered to parties that every problem doesn't matter raised by whom, will not be forgotten and will not be taken away from the agenda. But at the same time, we must not forget that this is not the business as usual year or period. This is not the business as usual session and the entire process leading to the COP. And we must choose wisely what we are concentrating on. And of course, we have this kind of indication from the COP president, who I think yesterday or day before yesterday made a very good speech indicating his 4 priorities: mitigation, adaptation, finance, and cooperation. And well, let's think how to understand these priorities. I will share with you what I thought when I read it. Well, mitigation is not in the hands of the FCCC delegates any longer. These are the decisions that the heads of states, heads of governments are taking, and many of them took these decisions. And we need more followers that would add their pledges, that would add their policies, that would add their legal, economic, financial, social reforms to the global picture that will need to be built around this ultimate objective of Paris Agreement, which is climate neutral society and economy. I'm very pleased to see adaptation. Well, when the first adaptation committee met for the first time, the first question asked was how to make adaptation visible to the top political level. And this is very important, that we recognize adaptation not as an excuse for more emissions, like we heard 5-6 years ago, but as the enabler of sustainable investments, as the way to protect people's lives, as the way to manage investment risks for those who would be ready to put their money into the ventures that would otherwise not be bankable, not be possible to finance if no adaptation measures are in place, particularly in this climate challenge part of the world. So that's very important. Well, importance of finance and means of implementation, I don't need to say anything about it. But cooperation, well, Tosi rightly mentioned Article 6. By the way, Tosi, there is nothing like Paris rulebook. Such a creature does not exist. It's Katowice rulebook, by the way, from COP24. And there is Paris Agreement, which is big enough. And I would say that it should be an ambition of COP26 presidency to have Glasgow implementation framework, Glasgow agreements, like in Marrakesh in 2001 after Kyoto, when parties decided upon the framework to implement all the mechanisms. And Article 6 is much more than just market mechanisms. It's much more. It's about cities, it's about local communities, it's about cooperation with academia. It's the whole process to engage public activities, public thinking, and many, many more groups than we were considering 20 years ago.
Right, yeah.
And by the way, it's 20 years after Marrakesh. That would be nice to have new framework. And just to conclude, I think that it would be good to supplement this 4 big goals with maybe something a little bit smaller. I mean, it would be, I would call it climate empowerment, education. People need to know why to do it. People need to get vaccine, not only to COVID-19, but also to a lot of bullshit that they can read in the news from both sides, unfortunately. Those who are fighting for more action and saying things that are simply too difficult for people to comprehend, and those who are denying the obvious. So education is one of the preconditions, and I would say to create public support. This education would be instrumental and would play a decisive role. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Taking a broad agenda item, and you also take me to travel down the memory lane. Say in Marrakesh, after say Kyoto Protocol, we have had the LDC fund. We have had a lot of things, especially means of implementation. So if we can foresee something like that in Glasgow after 20 years of Marrakesh, that will be phenomenal. Especially Article 6 of the Convention, education, awareness, public consultation, all these things are in Article 6 of the Convention. So we also can have that broadening of the agenda item. If we can
called
have
ACE
it,
now.
Yeah,
it's called ACE now, Action for Climate Empowerment.
Yeah, climate empowerment, and also say Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, which is, as you are rightly pointed out, that it is much more than just market mechanism. It is a huge, it is also non-market mechanism. It is also say carbon pricing, carbon trading, carbon tax, fiscal measures in say every country, every region. If we can have that sort of, say in Latin America, can we have that? In Europe, we can have that. Or say in Bangladesh, can we have in our budget mechanism, say carbon tax? So that can we approach? So there are a huge, robustness of Article 6. So how we negotiators are cracking that now, say in line with Cato's rule book. So that is a huge challenge. Of course, the shares, SABSTA and SBCR, or say co-presidency, they are our presiding officers. So we all have played as presiding officers. So we have a limited, say, power, but the power rests on the parties. Power rests on the negotiators. So we also have a good number of negotiators. So we also should hear their voice, and they should also be given a lot of time. Because as I said earlier also, we don't have much time for the negotiation, for the negotiators. Because you see, same last year we couldn't negotiate. This year also half year we couldn't, especially negotiators can't say meet physically. So it is a huge challenge, but we can overcome because of co-presidency, and also our able chairs are there, our presiding officers. Those will also be helpful. Matti, you have been in the process for quite long as an experienced negotiator. What is your take?
Thank you, Kamrul.
And also for the vulnerable countries, because you are also in LDC expert group for many years, supported the least developed countries.
Yes, and also in loss and damage, more so.
Loss and damage, adaptation.
Yes. Yes. Well, I think that colleagues have said already quite a lot. It's interesting to see that maybe we can hope that COVID-19 will also do something good. That if this new type of negotiations will work, at least in some extent, I think that it would be helpful. Like Kishan said, that you can work from your home, you can go to the fridge and take a juice and a cup of coffee and cake while sitting in a meeting room. But still, I think that I quote my teacher in negotiation, for a long time ago, a teacher for negotiations, who said that the important thing is that you know all the people with whom you are negotiating. So when you are going to the negotiation table, you know that you are among the friends. So the informal settings, I'm afraid that don't work now, and also the informal meetings in the corridors to discuss with your colleagues and try to find common solutions before or between the negotiation sessions. That's not there now. I really hope that it's going to be, at least in some extent, effective. And one thing, a positive thing about I feel at the moment is that markets are working for us, so that there is carbon pricing in many places, and also the price of the renewables, the energy prices going down. So this is my short view now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mehdi. Jamie, say this year, right now, say G7 is meeting from 20 to 21st May, and 22nd May we have Biodiversity Day, and also this year COP 15 of Convention on Biological Diversity, United Nations Framework Convention, COP 15 is going to be held in Kunming, China, and also we are having the climate COP 26 in Glasgow. So what is the synergy between biodiversity and also climate change? Because biological diversity losses we are having across the globe, and also we are facing COVID. So we are going to go to the natural solutions we are opting for. And also for climate change, we need to natural-based solutions, especially in terms of adaptation, and also to some extent mitigation. If we want to say have more mangrove forests, more afforestation, and also stop deforestation and go to the nature. So how that linkage, that synergies can enshrine in both the conventions can be implemented? Can we take concrete adaptation actions, nature-based solutions, and also raise our biological diversities?
Thank you. Yeah, one of the things I actually enjoy about Zoom is the fact that I've discovered that my gray hair doesn't show very well on a Zoom call, but it is there. I have been around for quite some time. And I remember the first time I ever went to a UNFCCC meeting. It was a subsidiary body meeting in Bonn. And I was introducing myself to one of the negotiators, and I said, I'm representing the CBD. And they said, well, what's the CBD? And I said, it's the Convention on Biodiversity. And they said, never heard of it. And I started to walk around and kind of test with others, CBD, no, sorry, no, what's that? What's that? And a couple of years later, I finally had realized that I needed to explain, yes, I'm representing the Convention on Biodiversity. We're the other Rio Convention, there is 3 of us. And then I started talking about oceans, and people said, oh yeah, no, sorry, oceans and it's not part of the climate change debates. You need to take that somewhere else. And I'm very happy to say that I would guess that now if I went to a UNFCCC meeting and said biodiversity convention, most people would say, oh yeah, I know about that. And if I spoke about oceans, most people would say, absolutely, we need to look to oceans as a solution, both on the mitigation side through seaweed and seagrasses, and on the adaptation side as an important resilience consideration. So at the very basic level of the negotiations and what people are talking about and what people are saying needs to be within the convention and part of the dialogue. We've seen such progress over the past 20 years. And we're starting to see that in the higher level political debates as well. The G7, the finance ministers of all, finance and development ministers have already met. They spoke again about adaptation and resilience and the need for nature-based solutions. They're calling again for that pledge of $100 billion in finance by 2025. We will see what announcements come at the G7. My hope is that most leaders took Biden's climate summit as an opportunity to announce their commitments and are going to take the G7 as an opportunity to announce the financing that's going to back up those commitments. I do have some concerns, of course. We're seeing an increasing mix of loans and grants in the climate finance space, and one of the most difficult things to finance through a loan is a nature-based solution. We're seeing a little bit of innovation in the space, but it doesn't matter what rhetoric happens at the top level around the importance of nature-based solutions. If the financing model and the financing pledges aren't matched to that ambition, we will not see action. So I'm waiting very eagerly to see what happens at the G7 summit, and then following that at the G20. And I really do hope that countries are going to start to put their money where their mouths are and make sure that those that have the highest potential for nature-based solutions, those that have the highest reliance on nature-based solutions, are provided with appropriate funding to take advantage of the natural assets they have as a key to not just short-term but long-term resilience building.
2020 has been a year of change.
Thank you, Jamie.
Our vibe.
Skype. Walker Turner. Turner, are you with us? Turner Walker, my friend, are you with us? I think we have lost her. Anyway, Toshi, you have heard Kishan, you have heard Thomas, Matty, and also Jamie. And almost everyone endorses your approach. And I also count on you, especially since you have been quite old in this process by now. And we those have been in the process since INC days, seen lots of ups and downs, but we have overcome. We have navigated the whole conference of the parties to say anchored in the right fort, right seat. Say even in the turbulence, we have seen topsy-turvy in Copenhagen. We have seen in Durban, even in say Doha, say all those middle of the nights, early mornings we have seen. But at the end of the day, we succeeded. And this time also, Toshi, even if we are facing a Herculean task, we are confronting uphill task, but we can overcome this time also and rise to the occasion. And what is your, say, final observation and approach?
Thank you very much, Kamrul, and let me thank Kishan, Thomas, Matti and Jamie for the 4 votes of confidence and for the guidance and the advice. I think they provided very rich insight, which is definitely going to help me adapt and readjust the approach. I agree with everything they said. I like Thomas' quoting of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. And I think I may be quoting him also in the coming days, like I've been quoting Kishan in the past year. I think that Matti made also some very relevant points, which have been well captured. And to reassure Jamie, I think that we have come to a time where we cannot evolve in silos anymore. Everything is interconnected at some point. And indeed, today when I attend G20 preparation meetings, it's very much about just transition, as well as the role of cities in the future, as well as oceans and biodiversity. See, everything is linked. And I think that we need to adopt a seamless, comprehensive, coherent, converging approach so that we can develop as many synergies as possible. That said, I took good notes of the advice and the encouragement. And it is certainly not Marianne's and I's magical trick to make the process succeed in June and in Glasgow, but it is a collective endeavor. And I think maybe the most important word was mentioned by Kishan. Kishan spoke about the good faith. So as long as all of us engage on the basis of good faith, then I think we may reach our common goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Doshi. I think Tarna Walker, she is with us. Her net is dropping, her connection is dropping most of the time. Tarna? So what is your take? Tarna? Can you join? Can you hear me? Turner Walker. Oh my God. You are yet to adapt. You are a champion adaptation specialist, but this time you failed. Anyway, Kishan. Toshi had a full faith in you. Kishan.
Well, thank you. I'm not sure that Toshi has much faith in me as he needs to have in the parties. And the parties have to have in him. And the parties have to have in themselves and each other. I think, collectively, this approach has to be seen with some level of sobriety and practicality as the situation demands. And that really sums it up. I mean, it doesn't go much beyond that. There will be challenges, but we have to overcome those challenges. And I think under the able leadership of Toshi and Marianne, and with the support of the Bureau, that can be done. This is a new modality, but it's not a strange one. I think maybe the only potential pitfall from it would be the opportunity to that human touch, where you can have a bilateral with a colleague over a beer or a cup of coffee, the handshake, the pat on the shoulder, the look in the eye, the reassuring confidence that you can give each other. I think that human touch is always immeasurable and invaluable. And certainly we will have opportunities in the future for that. But if we bear in mind that is indeed what we are doing virtually, then I think that reassurance can come. I think the good faith, the optimism, and the confidence that we need to go into the SBs, saying that this can work, this must work. I think if we go with that tagline, it will work, and we can come out triumphant at the end as we move towards Glasgow. So I fully endorse Tosi's take on it. He has my support, our support, to make this successful, at least from my country's perspective. We will facilitate and support wherever we can to ensure that the process benefits from this new, not quite a new experiment, but a new phase in its evolution going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Kishan, for your wise words. Thomas.
Thank you very much. And as usual, the discussion here is really really great. Just 2 quick points. Firstly, I just want to underline what Jamie has said about nature-based solutions. I think that in our strive to implement all the mechanisms, all the institutions on the Paris Agreement, we have left the nature to the nature without taking too much care on it in the negotiations. I think that this decade, entire decade, has to be the decade of nature-based solution. It's for mitigation, it's for adaptation, it's for food security, it's for biodiversity, it's for acting against desertification, etc., etc., etc. And by the way, Article 5 of Paris Agreement deserves its implementation too. And just one quick comment to the participation of observers and stakeholders in the process. Well, as I said, it's not business as usual year. It's a very special year, and we have to particularly take into account that some colleagues may encounter certain difficulties in connection. Well, we saw our Australian colleague having major problems in connecting with us. And I can imagine that many, particularly island countries in the middle of ocean, may have similar problems. Well, I'm not saying Australia is a small island, but it's an island. But there is a lot of events where the stakeholders, where the think tanks, where the observers may actively participate, climate weeks, regional workshops, some conferences organized all over the world. They have their say, they have the opportunity to say, we may open the negotiations to observers only to the extent that would not technically jeopardize the participation of the negotiators. This is something that we also need to clearly communicate to our NGO colleagues and other colleagues, that it's not against their willingness to follow the process actively. It is kind of a sacrifice that we all have to make. It's like Tosi explained, this split of the world into 3 time zones, so everybody would suffer 1 week. So this is just the contribution of the stakeholders. They simply cannot be allowed in unlimited connections with the process. That would need to be explained as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Jamie, you know, in the INC days in 91, 92, we have crafted 3 conventions, all 3 Rio conventions, almost the same set of negotiators in New York or in some even in Nairobi. We had those say negotiations, and on May 22, we had adopted the Nairobi Acts. on Biological Diversity Convention, Framework Convention. And on the last week of May 1992, we have, gathered all the 3 conventions in New York and took it to Rio for the signature of our head of states and governments, or leader of the delegations. So that way, under Agenda 21 or Earth Summit, we crafted these 3 conventions. So there are linkages from that time, but when we are implementing it, we are not giving it a hit. We are doing it in silos. Like in our different countries, different ministries, we do most of the time do not cooperate with each other. These are the, teething effects. So we have to overcome those teething effects and try to have the best synergies so that all these 3 Rio conventions can be implemented effectively and fully. And of course, Biodiversity Convention can help our climate convention in its implementation in a great way if we can have synergies. Jamie.
Thank you. One of the strangest things I found over my career is the disconnect between what's happening locally on the ground and what's happening globally in these international processes. And I think that what you're talking about, Kamaral, this disconnect only exists at those higher levels. When you're talking to local communities about different conventions, they don't care about any of that. They're just looking at what assets they have to address the problems that they face. And I'll share a story to illustrate my point. I was very early in my career working for the World Bank, and I went to Senegal. And I said, you know, it's interesting. I looked at your reports to the Desertification Convention and your report to the Biodiversity Convention. And the percentage of land that you categorize as dry and subhumid lands is different. You know, why is that? And I said, oh, okay, it's because the consultant we hired to report to the UNCCD was funded by France. So we used this GIS system that the French gave us to calculate it. And then to the Biodiversity Convention, it was funded by the US, and they gave us this GIS system to define drylands. And I said to them, I said, well, okay, but what do you use? And he walked away from the computers and he went to this big map drawer, opened it up, pulled out a map and said, this is what we use. We don't use that system. We don't use this system. This is the system that works for us, and this is the system we use. And so on the ground, they knew exactly what land was dry versus forested versus coastal versus marine versus riparian. But when elevating it to the level of reporting to the conventions, so much was brought in terms of politics, policies, finance, who paid for what systems were they allowed to use, what consultants were brought in, that the issue got muddled. And what I think is happening now is that there's an awakening at the global level that, oh, hang on, you know, maybe we need to go back to the roots. Maybe as negotiators, we're also practitioners. Maybe as practitioners, we're also negotiators. And let's make those connections stronger. Let's bring together these issues that have never been siloed on the ground and only have ever been siloed once you bring in the complications of global geopolitics, of global finance. And I'm thrilled to see that. And I agree with what Thomas says, that it's just finally coming into light that this siloing is almost artificial. This ring fencing is no longer beneficial as we address these challenges.
Thank you, Jamie. Turner Walker, are you still here? Can you join now? Turner? No. So, Matty.
Thank you. Some very short words. One thing we have heard quite a lot of CBD, but we have to remember that well, we always say that there are 3 conventions. So there is also the desertification and technology negotiations in UNCCD last COP 2 years ago, and certainly many of the paragraphs could be also adopted in UNFCCC substance. So they really are sisters, and I have to remind also Tosi that remember also the Desertification Convention and its decisions when you are leading the negotiations in substance. And then about the nature-based solutions, I'm happy that in President Biden's climate conference, many of the leaders of the governments mentioned forests and forest actions. So it's really now the political decision makers have realized that, and also the just transition. So when we have the systemic change, it means new jobs, and that's a reality. Also, what the politicians are slowly taking on board. So thank you.
Thank you, Maitri. Turner Walker, are you here? Okay. Toshi, so I'm coming to you for your final word, closing comment. Before that, I would also like to ask you, because this time we are facing a Herculean task. We are meeting virtually. Say, I can't fight you. You can't say, shake hands with me. You can't touch me. Or we can't touch Kishan. So that way, we are not getting socialized, or say, can meet overnight in a party, say in Bonn, say Maritime Hotel, or even in some restaurant, having our dinner and try to smash, crack some, say, hard issues. But we need also a set of good presiding officers in this very special situation to navigate us to Glasgow in a safe landing zone, to help you and Maria, to help all of, so that the COP presidency is Substra and SBI chairs, you can take us to Glasgow in a safe place, safe. All the agenda items you can take there as a matured one, in a finite or say finished one, not that much say unfinished or half done. So you require to also have strike a balance between developing countries and developed countries, different regions, different groups, because we have a lot of group interest, we have a lot of diversities, but we have also commonalities. So how best to strike it, by this time, because you have also been in the process for quite long now. Those.
Yes, two things. The first one is I think also other colleagues have alluded to it, and Kishan spoke about the little tap on the shoulder, the little push in the back. I mean, that indeed the human touch, the small cigarette breaks for those who have that habit, the coffee break, the little chat to getting out of the room and stretching a little bit. All those things can be actually key turners that can create a momentum in the room, and we'll be missing that element indeed, and it is unfortunate. But hopefully this pandemic we are facing will get under control, and we'll see what can be done. And maybe the UK presidency needs to be very bold. I don't know, if we are to go into Glasgow, what can the UK do? The UK has a large network of diplomatic posting. Can they make available vaccines for pre-registered delegates? I don't know. I'm not the ultimate authority on that thing. And I know that some countries are facing very difficult situations. But before we are able to meet again in person, we have the June session. And let us try to make the best out of it. Let us try to really go the extra mile, above and beyond the compromises that we are usually able to make, so that we can really make it a success. And maybe the fact that we will not have the gun on our head, because it's not decision making, maybe then it will allow us to actually go that extra mile and show extra flexibility, because no decision will be made, but it will be more of an opportunity, a space to have a really good interaction and engagement. That said, that was the first point on the human touch and human elements that may be missing during the session. The second one is the people that we have to rely on. And like I said, Marianne and I, we've really been working hand in hand. We know that in the past, there's been some tensions at times between SB chairs. It is normal because we have different approaches. And at times, Marianne and I also, we have a little bit of a tension. But Marianne and I have really endeavored to really show that we're sending a strong message that we have a common front and that we have a complementary approach as much as possible. And me, I'm trying to go a little beyond that when it comes to the Substar, because the Substar is a bureau. And during the climate dialogues last year in November, December, I involved as much as possible my vice chair, Kaka from Georgia, I believe, and the rapporteur, Stella from Malawi. So I tried as much as possible to also involve them so that people will see that it's not a one-man show of Tosi only trying to manage the Substar, but it is really some type of teamwork within the bureau. And as much as possible, I was trying to task them with some facilitation also. Then on the more technical issues, because I know many things, I've been around for many years, but I don't necessarily know everything on transparency, on Article 6. And for those issues, I've reached out to some facilitators, co-facilitators, in order to ensure the balance between developed and developing countries. And for example, when it comes to transparency, I will reach out again to Gao from China and Hélène from New Zealand, or to Seni from Mali and Delphine from France, so that they can help me with the discussions on transparency. And in a way, I'm making them help me, because they've been doing that for a while. They've gained some trust and some good knowledge of the dynamics in the room. And me, as being a new chair, or a chair who's been in charge for more than a year, but who's never had an opportunity to gavel, working with them hand in hand is definitely something which provides me a plus, a positive benefit. Also on Article 6, I will reach out to Per from Norway and to you, Silly, from Barbados / Grenada, if I'm not mistaken, and really try to make the best use of them. And having those competent, knowledgeable, seasoned negotiators, EFCO facilitators, coming from different parts of the world, having outreach in different constituencies, I think will definitely provide this complementarity that we need, so that we are able to build as much trust as possible, create the conditions for engagement on the basis of good faith, and really try to move a little bit more towards the solution that we need to have in Glasgow. But this June session is crucial because having 1 week of SBs in Glasgow will not fit the bill, will not be sufficient. So let us try to make the best use of this session. Let us see how it's going to work out. Maybe it may lead to another session in the fall, who knows? Yeah. And we'll see, but let us really try to make the best use of that space that has been provided to us. And it is, of course, Marianne and I working under the mandate that has been given to us by parties, under the guidance that has been given to us by the COP Bureau, but it is really our collective to make this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Tosi, for your approach. Yes, you can count on all of us because everyone had absolute faith in you, and also Marianne and Alok. In the coming days, you can navigate us. Garcia, you have joined. Can you hear me? Garcia. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Ishan. Okay. Can you share your reflection?
No, sorry, I'm not currently engaged with the climate change convention process, but thanks for the invitation. So I am just catching up.
Can you say put your camera on, and can you raise your head?
Okay, I got it. Let me see.
Okay.
Here I am.
Yeah.
No.
So nice to see you after long.
Yeah, nice to see you too as well. And
yeah.
Kishan too.
Yeah.
Oh, I was telling you that I am not currently engaged with the climate change negotiation process. But
yeah, I know.
Thanks for the invitation and just to catch up with you friends and to be aware of what's going on. Thanks.
Because you are an old hand. So experienced one. You have to guide us. Yeah. Guide to see and others.
Good
From
to see you as well.
Experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I am still engaged with the climate change action, but not exactly with the climate change negotiation process.
Not negotiation, but actions, climate actions.
Yes, absolutely.
We need to go for actions, concrete adaptation actions, mitigation actions.
We still need that. 20 years after, we still need action.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to you too.
Garcia. Yeah. So with that, Toshi, thank you very, very much for sharing your approach, your take, and your reflection on upcoming Zoom virtual SB session, Substar session. Thomas, your experience, your wise words, advice, guidance. Kishan, you took us safely to Paris negotiation as co-chair, and you also help guiding us now. And Matty, for your wise words, especially for adaptation, for loss and damage, and also for the concern you expressed about least developed countries, and Garcia for joining at the last moment, and also Jamie, and sorry for Turner Walker, you couldn't, you are with us, but you couldn't say anything because your connectivity was so low, you couldn't speak. With that, we hope that tomorrow we are going to have another episode, and every week we are airing 2 episodes, one on Saturday, one on Sunday, and hopefully in this year we will continue this climate conversation. And thank you for this discussion and productive conversation. And thank you very, very much. With that, I would like to stop here. See you tomorrow and next weeks.
Thank you so much.
You also help guiding us now, and Matty, for your wise words, especially